She put my own blood pressure pills in my champagne. I watched Brittany drop 3 white tablets into my glass during the toast at my retirement party. 67 people around us, celebrating my 35 years at First National Bank, and she's trying to drug me with my own medication. Most people would have confronted her right there, started screaming, made a scene. Not me. I've spent 3 decades investigating financial fraud. I know you never stop a criminal mid-crime. You let them finish, document everything, then destroy them with evidence. So I smiled, picked up her glass instead of mine. Brittany, I think you'd prefer this champagne. It has better bubbles. She looked confused but took my original glass, the one with my lisinopril dissolved inside. 15 minutes later, the ambulance arrived. You won't believe what the EMTs found in her purse that night, or how a simple glass switch exposed a scheme that could have killed me. The pattern started 6 months ago, but I didn't connect the dots until it was almost too late. My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm 62 years old, and after 35 years as Vice President of First National Bank's Fraud Prevention Department, I thought I'd seen every scam in the book. Turns out, I'd never seen one targeting me from inside my own family. Brittany Morrison married my son Jake 10 months ago. She's 28, runs a lifestyle Instagram account with 47,000 followers, and from day one, she made it clear that I was obsolete. It started small, family dinners where my invitation got forgotten, birthday parties where I'd find out from Facebook photos that I wasn't invited. When I'd ask Jake about it, he'd look uncomfortable and mumble something about Brittany handling the social calendar now. Then came the comments, little digs about my outdated financial advice, how I didn't understand modern investment strategies, but how my generation hoarded wealth instead of enjoying life. I let it slide. Jake seemed happy, and I figured young couples need space to build their own traditions. But then my medication started disappearing. I take lisinopril, 40 milligrams daily, for high blood pressure. It's not optional. My doctor, Patricia Williams, made that crystal clear after my last checkup in March. Robert, at your age, missing even 2 doses could spike your blood pressure to stroke levels. We're talking 200 over 130. That's hospitalization territory. I keep my pills in a weekly organizer. Every Sunday, I fill the compartments with 7 white tablets. By the following Saturday, they should be gone. But they weren't. First, it was just Tuesday's pill missing. I figured I'd miscounted. The next week, Wednesday and Friday were gone. The week after that, half the compartment was empty. I confronted Jake about it during one of our rare coffee meetings. Son, has anyone been in my medicine cabinet? His face went red. Dad, that's a weird question. Why would anyone want your blood pressure pills? I don't know, but they're disappearing, and my doctor says missing doses could kill me. Jake shifted in his seat. Maybe you're just forgetting? I mean, you're getting older and stressed from retirement planning. That's when I knew Brittany had gotten to him. My son, who I'd raised to think critically, was parroting her narrative about my declining mental capacity. I installed a Ring security camera in my home office that weekend. $60 on Amazon, hidden behind a row of banking textbooks on my bookshelf. If someone was stealing my medication, I'd have proof. The footage from April 2nd showed me everything I needed to know. 3:47 p.m. Brittany in my office, going through my desk drawers. She found my backup pill bottles in the bottom right drawer, the ones I keep for travel. She pocketed 1 entire bottle, 30 pills, worth about $24 at CVS, but potentially lethal in the wrong hands. That night, I called my private investigator friend, Marcus Rodriguez. We'd worked together on embezzlement cases at the bank. Marcus, I need a background check. Full financial, social media, everything. On who? My daughter-in-law. The report came back 3 weeks later. 25 pages of financial catastrophe. Brittany Morrison owed $73,247 across 6 credit cards. Her Instagram lifestyle was funded entirely a debt. Designer handbags, restaurant photos, vacation posts, all financed at 29% interest. But the most damaging information was in her direct messages, which Marcus obtained through his network of digital investigators. Screenshots of conversations with creditors, promising them she'd have access to serious money soon. Thibault, messages to friends about dealing with Jake's controlling father, and how she needed to accelerate the timeline. One message to her sister, dated April 15th, made my blood run cold. The old man has almost $2 million in retirement accounts. Jake's too weak to ask for help, so I'm handling it. Sometimes you have to take charge of these situations yourself. I printed every page, organized them in a manila folder, added my security footage, medical records, and a letter from Dr. Williams explaining the dangers of blood pressure medication theft. By May 1st, I had enough evidence to bury her, but I wanted to catch her in the act. I wanted witnesses. I wanted her to destroy herself so completely that Jake would finally see who he'd married. My retirement party was scheduled for May 15th, the perfect opportunity. She didn't know I was recording that conversation. May 10th, 5 days before my retirement party, I was reviewing catering details when my phone rang. Brittany's name flashed on the screen. I pressed record on my Sony ICD-TX 650 digital pen. $89.99 of the best money I'd ever spent. Robert, we need to talk about the guest list situation. Straight to business. No pleasantries. That should have been my first clue about what was coming. What about it, Brittany? Honestly, Jake and I have been discussing this, and we think the party might be overwhelming for you. You know, with your health issues and everything. I kept my voice level. What health issues? Come on, Robert. The blood pressure medications, the memory lapses Jake mentioned, the stress of retirement. Maybe a smaller gathering would be more appropriate. Just close family. Memory lapses. Jake had never mentioned any memory lapses to me, but apparently he'd mentioned them to her. That's thoughtful of you to be concerned. Tell me more about these memory issues. She took the bait. Well, you've been forgetting to take your pills regularly. Jake said you called him confused about missing medication. And last week at dinner, you asked the same question twice about our vacation plans. Fascinating. She knew about my missing pills, and she was already building a narrative about my mental decline. Classic financial predator behavior. Isolate the victim, question their competence, then swoop in as the solution. You seem very informed about my medical situation. Jake shares everything with me. We're married, Robert. We don't keep secrets. Right. Marriage partnership. I understand completely. So when you say the party might be overwhelming, look, I'm just going to be direct here. You're 62 years old. You have high blood pressure. You're showing signs of cognitive decline. And frankly, Jake and I are worried about your decision-making capacity. There it was, the setup. Decision-making capacity regarding what? Your finances, obviously. You're sitting on almost $2 million in retirement accounts, and you're making choices that don't make sense for someone in your position. What choices? Keeping everything in your name only. Not setting up proper estate planning. Not giving Jake and me any input on investment strategies. Honestly, Robert, maybe it's time to face reality and let someone younger handle the financial decisions. Someone who understands modern portfolio management. I let the silence stretch for 15 seconds. In fraud investigations, silence makes guilty parties nervous. They start talking. They reveal more than they intended. I mean, we're not asking for control, she continued, her voice getting faster. Just involvement. Jake should be on your accounts as a cosigner for emergencies, and maybe I could help with the investment research. I follow a lot of financial influencers who really understand the market. Financial influencers. She wanted to manage my retirement portfolio based on TikTok advice. That's an interesting perspective, Brittany. You've clearly given this a lot of thought. We both have. Jake's just too polite to bring it up directly, but someone needs to advocate for your well-being. And you've decided that someone is you. Exactly. Look, I know you probably think I'm just some young gold digger who married your son for money, but that's not fair. I care about this family. I care about Jake's future, and right now, your stubbornness about maintaining control is putting everyone at risk. Gold digger. She'd said it herself. At risk how? What happens if you have a stroke? What if your blood pressure spikes and you're hospitalized? Jake would be left scrambling to figure out your finances while dealing with a medical crisis. Is that really what you want? The blood pressure angle again. She kept coming back to my medical vulnerability, almost like she was planning something. So your solution is simple estate planning, Add Jake as beneficiary and co-signer on your major accounts. Set up a medical power of attorney. Get your affairs in order like a responsible adult. And if I refuse, her voice turned cold, then you're being selfish. And selfish people sometimes force others to make difficult decisions. What kind of difficult decisions? The kind that protect family members from their own poor judgment. That sounded like a threat, a very specific threat about overriding my judgment through medical or legal means. Well, Brittany, I appreciate your concern for my well-being. The retirement party is still happening as planned this Saturday. Oak Hills Country Club, 7 p.m. All 67 guests will be there to celebrate my 35 years of service. Robert, I really think, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. We can continue this conversation in person. I hung up and stopped the recording. 43 minutes of audio gold. Admission of planning to circumvent my financial autonomy. Threats about forcing decisions. And most importantly, detailed knowledge of my medical condition that she shouldn't have had unless she'd been monitoring my medication. I uploaded the file to my secure cloud storage and emailed a copy to Marcus Rodriguez with a simple subject line: insurance policy. 3 days until the party. 3 days until Brittany made her bow. I was ready. I remembered something from my fraud prevention training that night. After hanging up on Brittany, I sat in my home office staring at the manila folder of evidence. 35 years of catching criminals had taught me one fundamental rule: never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. But this wasn't just about catching a thief anymore. This was about my life. I pulled out Dr. Williams's consultation notes from my April visit. Her handwriting was precise, clinical. Patient requires daily 40 milligrams lisinopril. Missing doses create cumulative risk. 2 consecutive missed doses. BP spike to 180 over 120. 3 or more. Potential for 200 over 130 plus. Stroke risk. Hospitalization required. Brittany had stolen at least 15 pills from my weekly organizers. She knew exactly what those pills were for. And now she was pushing a narrative about my declining mental capacity while simultaneously talking about forcing difficult decisions for my own good. The pattern was textbook financial elder abuse. Create a medical crisis, establish mental incompetence, gain control of assets. I'd seen it dozens of times in bank fraud cases, but I'd never been the target. I opened my laptop and researched precedent cases. The Johnson case from 2019. Daughter-in-law convinced doctors her father-in-law was having medication-related confusion episodes, gained medical power of attorney, transferred $800,000 to her accounts before anyone noticed. The Martinez case from 2021. San's girlfriend triggered a medical emergency by tampering with grandfather's diabetes medication, used his hospitalization to claim he was unfit to manage finances, stole $1.2 million before family intervened. The method was always the same: create the crisis, offer the solution, profit from the chaos. But Brittany had made one crucial mistake. She'd targeted someone who'd spent 3 decades studying exactly this type of fraud. I picked up my phone and called Dr. Williams's after-hours line. Dr. Williams, this is Robert Mitchell. I need to ask you a hypothetical question about blood pressure medication. Of course, Robert. What's the scenario? If someone were to slip multiple lisinopril tablets into another person's drink, what would happen? Long pause. Robert, that's not really a hypothetical question, is it? Let's say it isn't. Then I need to tell you that's attempted poisoning. 40 milligrams might not kill a healthy adult, but it could cause severe hypotension, blood pressure dropping to dangerous levels, dizziness, fainting, potential heart complications. And if the person already had low blood pressure or was taking other medications? What about someone who doesn't normally take blood pressure medication? Even worse, their system isn't adapted to it. We could be looking at a medical emergency requiring immediate intervention. And if this hypothetical person were planning to do this in a public setting? Robert, if you have specific information about someone planning to harm you or others, you need to contact the police immediately. I will. But first I need to know, if this happened at a social event, and the perpetrator accidentally consumed the tampered drink instead of the intended victim, What would the witnesses observe? Another pause. They'd see someone having what appears to be a medical emergency, rapid onset, very dramatic. And if that person had the victim's prescription medication in their possession when paramedics arrived, it would prove premeditation. Exactly. Robert, please be careful, and please involve law enforcement. I thanked her and hung up. Law enforcement would come later, after I had ironclad evidence, after I had witnesses, after Brittany destroyed herself so completely that even Jake couldn't deny what she'd tried to do. I walked to my bedroom and opened the safe behind my dresser. Inside, next to my important documents, was something I'd hoped never to use. A small glass vial of clear liquid. Not medication, not poison, just saline solution left over from when I'd had eye surgery last year. The plan was simple. Fill a syringe with saline, inject it into a champagne glass. When Brittany made her move with my real medication, I'd switch our glasses. She'd get the effects of her own scheme, and I'd get the proof I needed. It wasn't illegal. Saline solution is harmless, but it would create the same visual effect as dissolved medication. Tiny bubbles, slight cloudiness that would be invisible in champagne. More importantly, it would give me complete control over the timing and the audience. I set my alarm for 6 a.m., 3 hours to prepare for the retirement party that would end her scheme forever. The best revenge wasn't going to be destroying Brittany myself. It was going to be letting her destroy herself. She had no idea I was building a case against her, while she thought she was building one against me. Saturday morning, May 15th, 6 hours until the retirement party. I woke up with the methodical calm I'd felt during my biggest fraud investigations. Every piece of evidence organized, every contingency planned, every witness positioned. But first, I needed to set the final trap. I called Jake at 8 a.m. Son, I've been thinking about what you and Brittany said regarding my finances. Dad, I never said... It's okay, Jake. Maybe you're both right. Maybe I am being too controlling. Would you and Brittany like to meet me for coffee this afternoon to discuss some estate planning changes? Silence. Then, seriously? Seriously. Brittany made some valid points about preparing for medical emergencies. I think it's time to be more collaborative. Dad, that's... Wow. Yes, absolutely. Brittany will be so relieved. Good. Bring her to Starbucks on 5th Street at 2 p.m. I'll have some documents to show you both. I hung up and opened my laptop. Time for the performance of a lifetime. I created fake bank statements showing my portfolio in easily liquidated funds. Not the truth. Most of my money was locked in protected retirement accounts. But Brittany didn't need to know that. I made it look like $1,847,293.44 sitting in a simple checking account ready for immediate transfer. I printed the fake statements on authentic First National letterhead, added realistic transaction codes, made it look like I'd been liquidating investments all month, preparing for some major financial decision. Then I drove to FedEx office and made copies of everything. The real evidence against Brittany, and the fake evidence that would make her think she was about to win. At 2 p.m. sharp, Jake and Brittany walked into Starbucks. She was practically glowing with anticipation. Robert, Jake told me you wanted to discuss some financial planning. I think that's so wise. I spread the fake bank statements across the small table. You were right, Brittany. At my age, keeping everything in my name only is irresponsible. Her eyes locked onto the account balance. 1.8 million. Available balance. $1,847,293.44. These are your current holdings. Liquid assets only. I liquidated my retirement accounts last week. Took the tax hit. I figured it was better to have everything accessible in case of medical emergencies. Jake frowned. Dad, that's a huge tax penalty. Sometimes you have to pay for peace of mind, son. Besides, Brittany's right about modern investment strategies. This gives us flexibility. Brittany was practically vibrating with excitement. So what were you thinking in terms of restructuring? Well, I'd like to add Jake as joint account holder. Give you both access in case something happens to me. That's very responsible, she said, her voice honey-sweet. When were you thinking of making these changes? Tomorrow, Monday morning. I have an appointment with my bank manager at 9 a.m. Perfect. And tonight's party. How are you feeling about that? Not too stressful? There it was, the setup question. Honestly, I'm nervous. Big crowd, lots of attention. My blood pressure has been acting up all week. Jake looked concerned. Dad, maybe we should cancel. No, Brittany interrupted quickly. The party will be fine. Right, Robert? You just need to relax. Maybe have a drink. Celebrate your accomplishments. You're probably right. A little champagne might help with the nerves. She smiled, the predator sensing wounded prey. We talked for another 20 minutes about fake estate planning details. I showed them forged documents about medical power of attorney. Brittany volunteered to help research the best attorneys for the paperwork. When we left, I hugged Jake goodbye. See you tonight, son. 7 p.m. sharp. Brittany shook my hand. Robert, I'm so proud of you for making these mature decisions. Tonight's going to be perfect. Perfect. She was right about that. At 4 p.m., I drove to Oak Hills Country Club to review the setup. The private dining room overlooked the golf course. Round tables seating 8 guests each. Head table for family and close colleagues. I found Teresa Martinez, the catering manager, arranging champagne flutes on silver trays. Mr. Mitchell, everything's ready for tonight. The Dom Perignon, 2012 you requested, 8 bottles total. We'll serve the toast at 8 chapmate. 30 p.m. right after your speech. Perfect. One small request. Could you make sure the family table gets served first? I'd like to propose a special toast to my son and daughter-in-law before addressing everyone else. Of course. We'll bring a separate tray to your table. And Teresa, when you pour the champagne, could you fill my glass and the glass directly to my left about halfway? Everyone else can have full pours. She looked confused but nodded. Special dietary restrictions? Something like that. At 6 p.m., I went home to get dressed. Navy blue suit, white shirt, red tie. The same outfit I'd worn to my first day at First National 35 years ago. I slipped the digital recording pen into my jacket pocket, activated the voice memo app on my phone, put the saline-filled syringe in a small case in my other pocket. Marcus Rodriguez called as I was adjusting my tie. Robert, I've been thinking about tonight. Are you sure about this plan? Marcus, I've spent 35 years catching criminals who thought they were smarter than the system. Brittany's about to learn that experience beats entitlement every single time. Just be careful. Don't give her any reason to claim you provoked her. I won't have to provoke her. She's going to destroy herself. At 6:45 p.m., I drove to Oak Hills Country Club. 67 guests would witness the end of Brittany Morrison's scheme. She thought tonight was her victory celebration. She was wrong. That's when she made her fatal mistake. The party started at 7 p.m. sharp. Guests filled the private dining room. My colleagues from First National, neighbors from the subdivision, Jake's teacher friends, even my old college roommate who'd flown in from Phoenix. Brittany arrived 20 minutes late, making an entrance in a red cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She hugged everyone like she was the guest of honor, posting Instagram stories every few minutes. I watched her work the room, all smiles and charm, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She kept checking her watch, glancing toward the champagne station, measuring the crowd. At 8 p.m., she approached me near the head table. Robert, this is such a wonderful turnout. You must be so proud. I am. 35 years of relationships paying off. Speaking of paying off, she glanced around to make sure no one was listening. I've been thinking about our conversation earlier, about the account changes tomorrow. What about them? Well, maybe we should streamline the process. Instead of adding Jake as joint holder, what if we just did a simple beneficiary designation? It would be faster, less paperwork. Beneficiary designation. That would give her access if something happened to me, but no immediate control. Unless, of course, something happened to me tonight. That's thoughtful of you to research the options. I called 3 different banks this afternoon. They all said the same thing. Beneficiary changes can be processed immediately, while joint account setup takes weeks. 3 banks. She'd spent the afternoon planning how to access my money as quickly as possible after my hypothetical medical emergency. Brittany, you seem very knowledgeable about banking procedures for someone in the lifestyle influencer business. Her smile flickered. I just want what's best for the family. Of course you do. Jake appeared at my elbow, looking nervous. Dad, they're about to start serving dinner. The caterer wants to know if you're ready for the toast. Almost. I just need to use the restroom first. I excused myself and walked toward the hallway. But instead of going to the restroom, I ducked behind a pillar where I could observe the head table unnoticed. Brittany immediately pulled Jake aside. Even from 15 feet away, I could read her body language. Urgent whispers, pointing toward the champagne station. Jake shaking his head, looking uncomfortable. Needs to relax tonight, I heard her say. He's been so stressed about retirement. Brittany, I don't think... Jake, trust me. I know what I'm doing. Your father needs to feel celebrated, not anxious. She was setting up her narrative, explaining why she was about to drug me as an act of kindness. I returned to the table just as Teresa Martinez appeared with the champagne tray. 8 flutes filled with Dom Perignon, tiny bubbles catching the chandelier light. Ladies and gentlemen, the catering manager announced, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell would like to propose a toast before dinner. I stood up, glass in hand. Brittany was sitting directly to my left, just as I'd arranged. Thank you all for being here tonight. 35 years at First National Bank taught me that success isn't about individual achievement. It's about the people who support you, challenge you, and help you grow. Polite applause. Brittany was fidgeting with something in her purse under the table. I especially want to thank my son Jake for being the kind of man any father would be proud of, and his wife Brittany, who's taught me so much about modern perspectives on family dynamics. More applause. Brittany's hand was still moving under the table. I could see her shoulders tense with concentration. Now, I know some of you have to drive home tonight, so please drink responsibly. But first, let's celebrate. I raised my glass toward the center of the table. Everyone else did the same. That's when I saw her do it. Quick movement. Something small and white dropped into my champagne. 1 tablet. 2, 3. My own lisinopril, dissolved in Dom Perignon, 2012. Showtime. Her Instagram post got exactly the wrong kind of attention, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to what happened immediately after she drugged my champagne. I smiled and looked directly at Brittany. You know what? I think you'd prefer this glass. It has better bubbles. I smoothly switched our champagne flutes. Hers, clean Dom Perignon with saline. Mine, now containing 3 dissolved lisinopril tablets. She looked confused but didn't object. Oh, thank you, Robert. That's sweet. Cheers to new beginnings, I said, clinking her glass. She drank. I pretended to sip from mine. The next 15 minutes were excruciating. I had to make small talk with guests while watching Brittany for signs that the medication was taking effect. Blood pressure medication works fast when you don't need it. At 8:47 p.m., she started looking pale. 8:52 p.m., she excused herself to the restroom. 8:58 p.m., Jake went to check on her. 9:03 p.m., Jake came running back. Dad, something's wrong with Brittany. She's dizzy and can barely stand. Perfect timing. I'd already called 911 from the hallway. The ambulance is on the way, I announced to the room. Everyone, please stay calm. The EMTs arrived 6 minutes later. Professional, efficient, asking all the right questions. When they checked Brittany's purse for medical information, they found exactly what I knew they'd find. Sir, does your daughter-in-law have a prescription for lisinopril? No, I said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. That's my blood pressure medication. Why would she have it? The lead EMT held up the pill bottle with my name on the CVS label. We found this in her purse. Same medication that would cause these symptoms if taken by someone who doesn't need it. 67 witnesses heard that exchange, but Brittany's real mistake happened the next morning. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Apparently, while she was recovering in the hospital Sunday morning, Brittany had decided to control the narrative through social media. Her Instagram post went live at 7:22 a.m. Last night was literally the most traumatic experience of my life. My father-in-law deliberately switched our drinks at his retirement party to make me look bad in front of everyone. I ended up in the ER because he put something in my champagne. This is what happens when toxic family members can't handle losing control. Jake and I are considering legal action because this is straight up assault. Please send prayers and positive vibes. Toxic family. elder abuse, namdahara truth, namart hospital, namdahara trauma, namdahara justice for Brittany. The post included a hospital bracelet selfie and a photo of her looking pale in a medical gown. Within 2 hours, it had 800 comments. But Brittany had forgotten something crucial. My former colleagues at First National weren't just random Instagram followers. They were trained financial investigators who'd known me for decades. The comments section became a war zone. Margaret Thompson, my former supervisor. Robert Mitchell is one of the most ethical people I've ever worked with. This post is disgusting. David Park, retirement planning specialist. I was at that party. She was acting suspicious all evening, not Robert. Jennifer Wilson, fraud investigator. Girl, you literally had his prescription medication in your purse. How exactly is that his fault? Then my neighbors started chiming in. Carol Martinez. Robert has been nothing but kind to everyone in our subdivision for 12 years. This is character assassination? Tom Bradford. I saw the whole thing happen. She was fidgeting with something under the table right before the toast, but the nail in the coffin came from an unexpected source. Dr. Patricia Williams had seen the post through mutual connections and decided to respond professionally. As a medical professional, I can confirm that lisinopril poisoning requires deliberate administration by someone with access to the medication. The symptoms described are consistent with someone who took the medication, not someone who had it put in their drink by another person. This post appears to be an attempt to blame the victim of medication theft, a doctor, a real doctor with credentials, explaining the medical impossibility of Brittany's story. The tide turned completely. Comments started pouring in from people calling her out. Screenshots of her expensive lifestyle posts next to complaints about being a victim. Someone found her wedding registry from 10 months ago, $47,000 worth of luxury items. The hashtag justice. For Brittany became ironic. People were using it to demand justice for me, not for her. By noon, she'd deleted the post, but screenshots live forever on the internet. Jake called me at 12:47 p.m. Dad, I am so sorry. I had no idea she was going to post that. It's not your fault, son. She's saying you deliberately switched the glasses to hurt her. Jake, the EMTs found my medication in her purse. Why would I need to put anything in her drink when she already had the pills? Long silence. I don't know, Dad. I don't understand any of this. You will soon. The retirement party would be her last chance, and I was ready. Monday morning, May 16th. While Brittany was doubling down on her social media narrative, I was at the police station with Marcus Rodriguez and a banker's box full of evidence. Detective Sarah Walsh had handled financial elder abuse cases for 15 years. She knew the patterns, the tactics, the legal requirements for prosecution. Mr. Mitchell walked me through the timeline again. I opened my manila folder. It started in March with missing medication. I have security footage of the theft, medical consultation notes about the dangers, and recorded phone conversations where she admits planning to override my financial autonomy. Show me the security footage. I pulled out my laptop and played the April 2nd clip. 3 minutes and 14 seconds of Brittany in my office, going through my desk, pocketing the pill bottle. She knew where to look, Detective Walsh observed. This wasn't random searching. Because she'd been stealing from my weekly organizer for weeks. I have photos showing the missing pills, dated and time-stamped. Next, I played the May 10th phone recording. 43 minutes of Brittany threatening to force difficult decisions about my finances, demonstrating detailed knowledge of my medical condition, and admitting she'd researched how to circumvent my financial autonomy. This is premeditation, Detective Walsh said. But the hospital incident? Here's the EMT report. I handed her the official documentation. They found my prescription medication in her purse. Lisinopril, 40 milligrams, prescribed specifically to me. She had no medical reason to possess it. And the glass switch? I suspected she was planning to drug me based on her pattern of medication theft and the threatening phone call. When I saw her drop pills into my champagne, I switched our glasses to protect myself and preserve evidence. Detective Walsh reviewed the private investigator's report. $73,000 in debt. Messages to creditors about accessing your money. This supports financial motive. There's more. I showed her the fake bank statements I'd created and screenshots of text messages Brittany had sent to Jake Sunday night. We need to move fast on your dad's accounts. After what happened at the party, people are going to start asking questions. Maybe we should handle the beneficiary paperwork ourselves instead of waiting for him. She was trying to accelerate the financial takeover, even after being caught with my medication. Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, the saline solution you injected into her glass, that wasn't mentioned in your initial statement, because it's irrelevant to the criminal charges. Saline solution is harmless. I used it to create a visual marker so I could identify which glass was which after she tampered with my drink. It had no medical effect on her symptoms, but you deliberately switched the glasses knowing she would consume medication. I deliberately protected myself from consuming medication that could have killed me. She experienced the effects of her own criminal act. Detective Walsh made notes for another 10 minutes. Based on this evidence, I can file charges for medication theft, attempted poisoning, and elder abuse. The financial fraud charges will depend on whether she actually accessed your accounts. She didn't get the chance. But I have documented proof of her intent and planning. At 2 p.m., I drove to First National Bank to meet with my manager, Linda Patterson. No relation, despite the shared surname. Robert, I heard about the incident at your party. Are your accounts secure? They never weren't. But I need to make some changes. I revoked the fake documents I'd shown Jake and Brittany, confirming that my actual assets remained in protected retirement accounts. The $1.8 million checking account balance had been theatrical fiction. I also need to create a family trust structure, I told Linda, something that protects both my assets and my son from future manipulation. Smart move. Given what happened, we should also add fraud monitoring alerts to all your accounts. By 4 p.m., I had legal protection, criminal charges filed, and my real financial information secured behind multiple layers of legal barriers. Marcus Rodriguez called at 5:30 p.m. Robert, I just heard from my contact at the prosecutor's office. They're moving forward with 3 felony charges against Brittany: medication theft, attempted poisoning, and financial elder abuse. What's the likely outcome? With this much evidence, plea bargain at minimum. Probably probation, restitution, and mandatory counseling. But more importantly, Jake will finally see the documented proof of what she was planning. That evening, I organized everything into a final presentation folder: security footage, medical records, financial evidence, recorded phone calls, text message screenshots, EMT reports, and witness statements from 67 party guests. Tomorrow, I would show Jake everything. It was time for my son to understand exactly who he'd married. Everything unraveled in 12 minutes flat. Tuesday morning, May 17th. Jake called at 8:15 a.m., his voice strained. Dad, we need to talk. All 3 of us. Brittany says she has evidence that you've been planning this whole thing to make her look bad. What kind of evidence? Screenshots of your bank activity. Proof that you move money around specifically to set her up. She says you've been manipulating the situation for months. Interesting. Brittany was going on offense, trying to flip the script before I could present my evidence. Where does she want to meet? Oak Hills Country Club, the same room where the party happened. She says it's symbolic, scene of the crime and all that. Perfect. I wanted witnesses anyway. What time? Noon. Dad, I have to ask, did you really switch the glasses on purpose? Jake, come to the meeting. Bring Brittany. You'll get answers to every question you have. I arrived at Oak Hills at 11:45 a.m. with my laptop bag and evidence folder. Teresa Martinez was setting up for a corporate lunch in the main dining room. Mr. Mitchell, you're back. How are you feeling after Saturday night? Much better, thank you. Teresa, would it be possible to have the private dining room available for about an hour? I'm meeting with my son and daughter-in-law to clear up some confusion about the retirement party. Of course. The room is yours until 2 p.m. I set up my laptop and arranged the evidence folders on the head table. Same seats we'd occupied Saturday night. Same champagne glasses, cleaned and waiting on the sideboard. Jake and Brittany arrived at exactly noon. She was carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a serious black suit, trying to look like she was conducting a business meeting. Robert, thank you for agreeing to discuss this situation like adults, she began, taking charge immediately. I think we can resolve everything if we just get the facts straight. I agree completely. Facts are important. Jake sat between us, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Okay, so what really happened Saturday night? Brittany opened her portfolio. I've done some research into your father's recent financial activity. These bank statements show he's been moving large amounts of money around for weeks, setting up some kind of elaborate scheme. She spread out printed bank statements, not the fake ones I'd shown them Saturday, but real statements she'd somehow obtained. My actual account activity showing normal retirement planning transactions. Look at these dates, she continued. April 3rd, he transferred $50,000 from savings to checking. April 10th, another $30,000. April 15th, he liquidated a CD worth $47,000. He was building up cash reserves for something. Jake frowned. Dad, is that true? It's true. I was liquidating assets, but not for the reason Brittany thinks. Then why? Brittany demanded. What were you planning that required almost $130,000 in liquid cash? I was preparing to disappear my money where you couldn't access it. Both of them stared at me. I knew you were planning something, Brittany. The phone calls about my declining mental capacity, the stolen medication, the pressure to add Jake to my accounts. I was moving assets into protected trusts, specifically to prevent financial elder abuse. That's ridiculous, she snapped. You're being paranoid. Am I? I opened my laptop and clicked play on the security footage. April 2nd, 3:47 p.m. You in my home office stealing my prescription medication. The video played in silence. Brittany's face went white as she watched herself pocket the pill bottle. That's not what it looks like. What does it look like, Brittany? I was just checking to make sure you had enough pills. You'd been forgetting doses and I was worried enough to steal 30 pills for yourself? Jake was staring at the screen. Brittany, what the hell? Let me show you what she was worried about, I said, starting the audio recording from our May 10th phone call. Brittany's voice filled the room. Honestly, Robert, maybe it's time to face reality and let someone younger handle the financial decisions. You recorded me without consent, she protested. In Texas, only one party needs to consent to recording. That would be me. The recording continued. Selfish people sometimes force others to make difficult decisions, the kind that protect family members from their own poor judgment. Jake's face was getting red. Brittany, you never told me you had this conversation with Dad. Because I knew you'd overreact. I was trying to help. Help with what? I interrupted. Help with this? I handed Jake the private investigator's report. Your wife owes $73,247 across 6 credit cards. She's been promising creditors access to my retirement money. She researched my medical vulnerabilities and planned to use them against me. Jake flipped through the pages, his expression growing darker. Brittany, you told me you had your finances under control. I do. This is just temporary. Temporary for how long? Since before you married my son, I showed them the text message screenshots. These are conversations with her creditors from March through May. She's been using my assets as collateral for loans she couldn't repay. Brittany stood up abruptly. This is harassment. You've been stalking me, violating my privacy. I've been protecting myself from someone who was planning to drug me. I never drugged you. No, you drugged yourself. I pulled out the EMT report and read aloud. Patient found with victim's prescription medication in personal belongings. Symptoms consistent with lisinopril ingestion by non-prescribed individual. No other substances detected. Jake, she said desperately, he switched the glasses on purpose. He wanted me to get sick. Because you put pills in his drink first, Jake exploded. The EMTs found Dad's medication in your purse. How do you explain that? I was holding it for him. He'd been forgetting. Stop lying! Jake slammed his hand on the table. Just stop. I've heard enough. He turned to me. Dad, show me everything. All of it. For the next 20 minutes, I walked them through the complete evidence chain. Security footage of the theft. Medical consultation about the dangers of medication tampering. Phone recordings of threats. Financial records showing her debts. And promises to creditors. Text messages planning to accelerate access to my money. And Saturday night, I concluded, when I saw her drop 3 pills into my champagne, I switched our glasses to protect myself and preserve evidence of her crime. Jake was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. You tried to drug my father. It wasn't supposed to hurt him, she burst out. Just make him confused for a few hours. So people would see he wasn't capable of making financial decisions anymore. It was for his own good. Complete confession, in front of a witness. For his own good, Jake repeated slowly. You were going to drug my 62-year-old father with blood pressure medication for his own good. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the credit cards, the minimum payments, your teacher's salary barely covering our rent. So you decided to steal from my father. Not steal, just redistribute. He has almost $2 million sitting in accounts he barely uses. We're drowning in debt. It made sense. It made sense to commit elder abuse. Brittany realized she'd said too much. Jake, please. We can work this out. Your father doesn't have to press charges. We can pay him back. With what money? Jake stood up. You just admitted you're drowning in debt. We'll figure it out. No, we won't. Jake pulled off his wedding ring and set it on the table. Brittany, this marriage is over. What you did to my father, what you planned to do, that's not who I thought I married. Jake, wait. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. And Dad, whatever charges you want to press, you have my full support. Brittany looked around the room desperately, realizing she'd lost everything in less than an hour. This isn't over. I'll fight the charges. I'll sue for defamation. With what money? I asked calmly. Your credit cards are maxed out. You're about to be unemployed when your Instagram sponsors see the criminal charges and you just confessed to attempted poisoning in front of a witness. She grabbed her portfolio and headed for the door. You'll regret this, both of you. Actually, I called after her, I think you're the one with regrets coming. The door slammed behind her. Jake and I sat in silence for a full minute. Dad, I'm so sorry. You didn't know. I should have known. The signs were all there, and I ignored them because I wanted to believe I'd found someone who loved me. She did love you, Jake. She loved the access you gave her to me. He laughed bitterly. Some love. The important thing is that you saw the truth when it mattered. That takes courage. Jake picked up his wedding ring and put it in his pocket. What happens now? Now you file for divorce. I press criminal charges, and we rebuild our relationship without someone trying to profit from it. And Brittany? Brittany learns that some mistakes have permanent consequences. Some boundaries can only be taught through consequences. 6 months later, the legal dust had settled completely. Brittany Morrison pled guilty to 3 felony charges: medication theft, attempted poisoning, and financial elder abuse. The prosecutor offered a deal: 18 months probation, $15,000 in restitution, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order keeping her away from me and Jake. She took it. The alternative was 3 to 5 years in state prison. Her Instagram account, once boasting 47,000 followers, was permanently suspended after multiple reports of fraudulent content. The lifestyle brand she'd built on credit card debt collapsed overnight. Last I heard from Marcus Rodriguez, she'd moved back in with her parents in Oklahoma and was working retail at a strip mall. Jake's divorce was finalized in August. Texas community property laws meant she got half of his teacher pension and savings, about $8,000 total. Not exactly the retirement windfall she'd been planning. Dad, Jake said over coffee last week, I keep thinking about how different things could have been if you hadn't caught her. Don't think about it. You'll drive yourself crazy with hypotheticals. But if she'd succeeded, if you'd drunk that champagne, then I'd probably be in a nursing home right now, wondering why my son never visits while she spends my money in Cabo. He shuddered. How did you stay so calm through the whole thing? 35 years of fraud investigation taught me that criminals always reveal themselves if you give them enough rope. Brittany hung herself with her own greed. My retirement